This is TOS Television, your digital-first Pan-African news network. I am Abigail Okwade, and this is Africa Now. Since a report was issued last month about the sexual exploitation and abuse by aid workers during an Ebola crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo, more women have reported workers involved in the scandal, a senior World Health Organization official disclosed. More than 50 women accused aid workers from the WHO and other charities of demanding sex in exchange for jobs between 2018 and 2020. Some 83 aid workers, a quarter of them employed by the WHO, were involved in sexual coercion and abuse during the country's 10th Ebola epidemic, an independent commission said last month. WHO has already terminated the contract of 4 employees identified as perpetrators and will be referring the rape allegations to national authorities for investigation. Now, Somali's militia and government allies Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah has agreed to a ceasefire following talks brokered by the local business community, ending days of bloodshed in Galmudug Federal State. Regional President State Abdi Kari Kukor told the media that the town is now under the control of pro-Galmudug forces and the people who had fled town are now trickling back. The decision to lay down the arms could not allow the state to complete its pending election for 2 Senate seats, allowing the country to focus on polls of 275 members of parliament in the lower house. Now to climate change updates. A fading lake with sand dunes taking over the lands on the edge of Timbuktu, Mali, has made life unbearable for residents and livestock, with some dying. Residents say there's not a day that goes by without conflicts between breeders and farmers because the space is small and everybody wants to exploit it. The lack of rains is also causing houses and schools to be gradually buried in dunes. This has a huge impact on education in the area. According to the United Nations, droughts in the African Sahel are set to deepen and become more frequent. Madagascar's government and the rest of the world have been called upon by Amnesty International to step up relief efforts for the island nation's drought-hit south, the worst in 40 years. More than 1 million people on Madagascar's parched southern tip are on the brink of famine, and some are already dying, the Global Rights Watch said in a report released on Wednesday. It calls on rich nations to provide humanitarian aid and offer financial and technical support to help the region, where more than 90% of the population lives in poverty, adapt to climate change. Experts are warning that crop switch for peasant farmers around the world who grow thirsty crops like corn will inevitably face a huge adaptation challenge as the effects of climate change worsen in the coming years. The International Fund for Agricultural Development in a report projected that harvest of staple crops in 8 African countries could plummet by up to 80% by 2050, as warming could accelerate to around 2 degrees Celsius by 2069 and up to 2.6 Celsius in some places. It adds that climate change could have a catastrophic impact on poverty and food availability unless there's an urgent injection of funding to help vulnerable farmers adapt how and what they can farm. This is your digital-first Pan-African news network, TOS Television. You're watching Africa Now. Business stories and more coming your way after the break. Do stay tuned. Welcome back in business. In response to the military seizure of power from a transitional government, the World Bank on Wednesday paused payment and stopped the processing of new operations for Sudan. This comes just 7 months after Sudan achieved full re-engagement with the bank and gained access to $2 billion in financing after isolation from the international financing system across 3 decades of Bashir's rule. Central bank employees have also stopped work in a further setback for the functioning of the economy. The United Nations International Labour Organization says the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on jobs is worse than previously expected and warns that a worrying 2-speed recovery is emerging between richer and poorer nations. The ILO projected that global hours worked in 2021 will be 4.3% lower than levels in the 4th quarter of 2019 prior to the outbreak of the pandemic. That was equivalent to 125 million full-time jobs. High-income countries fared better, suffering 3.6% decline in total hours worked in the third quarter of this year, the ILO calculated. That compares with falls of 5.7% for low-income countries and 7.3% for lower middle-income countries. A Senegalese-Spanish company has been accused of plundering valuable Liberian shrimps that retail for about $80 per kilogram using an experimental license intended to research purposes by a fisheries watchdog group. Brussels-based Coalition for Fair Fisheries Arrangement said 3 bottom trawlers belonging to a subsidiary of the Spanish Grupo Pereira were taking advantage of the license obtained in May to pay fewer taxes, and that Liberia was potentially losing millions of dollars in profits. Artisanal fishing provides a livelihood for some 33,000 people in Liberia. And moving away from business, as Kenya pursues a cleaner energy path to a 100% climate-friendly grid, the East African nation plans to retire or convert heavy fuel oil-fired power plants to use liquefied natural gas by 2030. State-owned Kenya Electricity Generating Corporation is conducting a feasibility study on reconfiguring the thermal power plants that currently account for about 7% of the grid load, says Isaac Kiva, Renewable Energy Secretary at the Energy Ministry. The move is part of the East African nation's target to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. To South Africa's local polls, President Cyril Ramaphosa authorized the deployment of 10,000 soldiers to assist in security operations and ensure a safe and secure environment during the forthcoming municipal elections due to start next week. The military deployment will begin on Saturday and will last for 5 days until November 3. Police have reported 8 deaths, mostly councillor candidates, since campaigning started. And that is it on Africa Now. For more updates, do visit our website at www.tostvnetwork.com. Follow us and like our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And remember to subscribe on YouTube. To stay with us and enjoy more programs on TOS Television Network. I am Abigail Okmade. Thanks for watching.